3 days after the wedding, photos were found that were never meant to be seen. These were not casual vacation pictures or harmless party shots. They were serious images, the kind lawyers usually work hard to erase before anyone outside a small circle ever sees them. For 6 years, those photos stayed hidden. Then Lady Colin Campbell spoke up. She said out loud what the palace had been afraid someone would finally say. She did not hint or use careful language. She looked directly at the camera and said 2 words that changed everything. Yacht girl. Once those words were spoken, nothing sounded the same again. Suddenly, deleted Instagram posts, missing guest lists, and summers that never quite added up were no longer rumors. They became clues. And those clues led to one uncomfortable question. How does a little-known cable TV actress end up on private yachts in the Mediterranean with billionaires and powerful men? That kind of access does not happen by accident. People do not just wander into those circles. And no one erases a past unless someone powerful decides it must disappear. But erasing history always leaves traces. Digital footprints remain in old data, archives, and the memories of people who were there. Lady Colin Campbell brought those traces back into the light. This was not about jealousy or hatred. It was about a story rewritten in real time by people who believed no one would ever notice. Before Meghan Markle became a duchess, before the interviews, before the streaming deals, there was another version of her life. That version does not appear in official biographies. It includes long summers spent in places like Ibiza, Monaco, and along the Turkish coast. These trips were not for acting jobs or charity work. They were for private parties, not glamorous events shown in magazines, but closed gatherings where phones were taken away at the door. The guest lists were small, and everyone there was extremely wealthy or influential. The women were young and beautiful. The men controlled money, power, and access. Everyone understood the rules without saying them out loud. Lady Colin Campbell claims Meghan was not just attending these parties. She was actively working them. She positioned herself carefully, spoke to the right people, and made sure she was remembered. And it worked. A woman with a modest acting career somehow entered elite circles filled with billionaires, foreign royalty, and powerful businessmen. That does not happen because someone is lucky. It happens because they plan every move. Every photo, every introduction, every smile had a purpose. According to Lady Colin Campbell, none of it was accidental. Lady Colin Campbell describes Meghan as someone who studied power closely. She understood that success is not just about talent or hard work. It is about access. It is about being close to people who matter and making them believe you belong there. If that meant spending weeks on yachts, attending boring parties, or laughing at jokes that were not funny, then that was simply the cost of entry. But those yachts were not just about networking. They were about leverage, about becoming someone important people felt connected to and wanted to protect. Someone they owed favors to. By the time Meghan entered royal life, she did not arrive alone. She came with a network behind her. When the engagement was announced, the cleanup began. Old photos vanished from search engines. Social media accounts went private. Entire years disappeared from public timelines. Anyone who asked questions was met with legal threats almost immediately. The palace called it protecting privacy. Lady Colin Campbell calls it a cover-up, and for a long time it worked. The cover-up might have lasted forever if one insider had not spoken. This person stayed anonymous and never appeared on camera. But what they told Lady Colin Campbell was so specific it stopped her mid-sentence. The insider said Meghan had a phrase she often used during those years. When people asked how she could afford constant travel or why she attended events she did not seem connected to, she would smile and say, "Real success isn't about where you are. It's about who believes you belong there." Lady Colin Campbell repeated the line slowly during the interview. Then she said, "That explains everything about her." And it did. Once you understand that mindset, everything makes sense. The yacht trips were not vacations. They were investments. The billionaires were not friends. They were stepping stones. And the prince was not the fairy tale ending. He was the exit strategy. According to the insider, Meghan never looked uncomfortable at those events. While others chased attention, she observed. She watched who had real power and who only pretended to. She was not there to party. She was there to move forward. And when she left that world, she did not leave empty-handed. She took contacts, introductions, and influence with her. This kind of social power does not appear on a resume, but it opens doors anyway. She also left something behind. Witnesses. People who remembered her. People who later recognized her as the woman wearing a tiara and giving speeches about compassion. When Lady Colin Campbell started asking questions, some of those people finally spoke. Not out of anger, but because they were tired of watching the media treat someone they knew as perfect. One former acquaintance allegedly told Lady Colin Campbell that Meghan had a rare ability. She made powerful men feel truly noticed. Not flirted with, but seen. She asked thoughtful questions and remembered small details others forgot. By the end of the night, those men wanted her invited again. Not because she was the most beautiful woman there, but because she made them feel important. That is not luck. That is skill. And that same skill appeared later. When she met a prince who felt overlooked within his own family, she made him feel seen too. The pattern did not change. Only the setting did. If Lady Colin Campbell had only talked about yachts and parties, the palace could have survived it. Embarrassing, yes, but not devastating. The real damage came when she talked about the photos. Not the ones that were erased, but the ones that still exist. She claims images are quietly circulating that place Meghan at events she has never publicly acknowledged. Events involving people connected to serious criminal investigations. She did not name anyone on camera, but she did not need to. The internet did what it always does. Old party listings, flight records, and forgotten social media tags resurfaced. Again and again, the same face appeared. The palace has never denied these images. That silence matters. Denying them would invite lawsuits and demands for proof. Confirming them would destroy the official story. So they stay silent and hope it fades away. Lady Colin Campbell says there was a coordinated effort to erase Meghan's digital past before the engagement. Old images were hit with copyright claims. Bloggers received aggressive legal letters. Entire websites disappeared. And the frightening part is that it almost worked. For years, the story stayed spotless. Anyone who questioned it was mocked, silenced, or labeled hateful. But truth has a habit of resurfacing, especially when the people hiding it stop caring. According to Lady Colin Campbell, that happened after Meghan and Harry left the royal family. Once they began criticizing the institution publicly, the people who had protected her started asking why they should continue. Slowly, protection faded. Photos leaked. Insiders spoke. And the palace realized it had lost control of the story. What makes this even stranger is the media's silence. Major news outlets that once covered every royal detail now avoid the topic. Journalists who built careers on palace gossip refuse to ask obvious questions. Independent creators who try to cover the story face demonetization, shadow bans, or vague legal threats. Lady Colin Campbell believes this is not a coincidence. She says powerful people benefit from keeping Meghan's past buried. People who attended the same events. People whose names appear on the same lists. People who would lose far more than a former duchess if the truth came out. The question now is not whether the truth will surface, but what happens when it does. If even part of Lady Colin Campbell's claims are true, then the fairy tale was never real. It was carefully designed. The most unsettling part is not that the story was false, but how well it worked for so long. Lady Colin Campbell says there are deeper layers still hidden. Financial records that do not match timelines. Travel records that contradict official statements. Relationships that were never disclosed. She believes the palace has always known. They chose to protect the institution instead of exposing the truth. They believed they could manage the damage. But now they are trapped. Speaking gives the claims power. Staying silent lets them grow. Meanwhile, the woman at the center continues giving interviews, launching brands, and talking about privacy, while the people who once protected her quietly step away. History always catches up. The same networks that helped her rise are watching closely. If her past ever becomes a legal problem instead of just a public relations issue, that protection will disappear instantly. Lady Colin Campbell understands this. Protection lasts only as long as usefulness. The photos exist. The witnesses are talking. And the internet never forgets. You can delete posts, scrub data, and threaten lawsuits, but you cannot rewrite the past. You can only delay discovery. That delay is ending now. So when you see glossy magazine covers or emotional interviews, ask one simple question. Who benefits from the story? The truth does not need permission to exist. It only needs someone willing to say it out loud. And once it is said, there is no taking it back.